I'd like to bring the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Skaneateles Board of Education. It's April 19th, 2022. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We got to extract that executive session.
Okay. Thank you for that catch up. I'd like a motion to leave executive session and return open session.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Danielle and Amanda. All in favor of leaving executive session, returning open session, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are back in open session. And now, Mrs. Everly, if you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, quorum count, everyone's here tonight. I'd like a motion from a board member to approve the minutes from April 5th.
So moved.
Moved by Danielle, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Amanda. And any discussion, any correction on the minutes? Okay, then all in favor of approving the minutes from April 5th, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we do approve those minutes. And Mr. Knuth, if you would introduce the presentation.
Absolutely. We're so pleased tonight to welcome our ELL students, and I'll introduce Ms. Heidi Lloyd to introduce the kids in the program and learn a little bit more about how our students fare at Skaneateles.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Guys, come on up. So everyone's a little nervous right now, I said including your teachers, so this is good.
Don't be nervous, relax.
Come on up with me, guys. I'm going to just introduce you to the kids and to Anne, and then just tell you a little bit about the students, and then they've got some artwork, and I'm going to hand out some writing samples to show you. But please feel free to ask the kids questions. I'm Heidi Lloyd, the high school E&L teacher, and this is Ann Hughes, our E&L TA, which we are so fortunate to have with us this year. And I'd like to introduce to you our newcomers, Edison and Louise. So come on up, Louise. These boys just joined us in January. So each of the kids are going to share a little bit with you after I introduce all of them. Nydia Macario Mejia. Okay. Nydia is at the transitioning level, which in the English proficiency spectrum, she's midway. And then we have Delto Vasquez Perez. You might have seen him on the soccer or the basketball court. And he is at the transitioning level too. And both Nydia and Delto joined us in 2020. Ashley Fernandez. And Ashley is at the expanding level. So there's one more level before she exits the ENL program. And she always helps me to translate. All the kids do a great job of helping me with it. And then we have Juan Carlos Ramos Carrillo. And Juan is also at the expanding level. And he joined us in the winter of 2020 from Moravia. Great, welcome. Yeah. But all the kids really, last year in the fall, so a year ago, September, were beginning level non-English speakers except for Ashley. So I'm really proud of what they've been able to accomplish. And some of our students, half of our students are considered SIFE, which are students with interrupted formal education. So we really work differently with SIFE students. I'm proud to report that the kids have successfully written research papers this year. 3 or 4 of them have. So to go from not speaking English a year and a half ago to now writing research papers in ELA 10 and 11 with support, I just think it's really good. And one of our students that wasn't able to make it tonight is part of a special program called Bridges, and we are working closely with the City University of New York, and it's supported by the New York State Education Department, a special program that will bridge the student into the high school courses, because again, another special category of English language learners. So we're really excited, and that the program is also paid for by the New York State Education Department. So we've been able to use those resources and not cost the district extra in that regard. So that's been a wonderful addition to all that we're learning, because how you work with students that have interrupted education is very different than how I was trained about 20 years ago in ENL. So I want to not take up any more time with me talking, but I'd like each of the students to come on up. I want to start with you, Juan? Okay.
My name is Juan Carrera. I have 17 years old, and I almost have 3 years here in the United States. I went to Moravia school, but it wasn't like not good for me. But then I moved here, it was like very good. I feel more comfortable, like more friendly. I learn English so quickly. It's like impressive. I don't know. I know what it is, but it was like I don't know, something that I can't explain how that I learn English so quickly. But also, yeah, I love this school. I love my classmates, so friendly. All the teachers, they help a lot me. Yeah, so, but that's.
Juan, what is your first language?
Spanish.
Awesome.
One thing.
Edison wants to also show you his artwork.
Oh, wow.
That's unbelievable.
Can you pass that around?
Yeah.
It looks, is that charcoal or? what's
I'm
that?
not sure. Oh, charcoal, no, it's ink. Do you want to say it in Spanish or English? English. I like.
I like school because it is fun to learn a new language, and I like gym because I like to play sport.
So he loves
Great.
learning English and playing sports.
Awesome.
Sport.
What sport do you like the most?
Soccer.
Football?
Ronaldo?
Mm-hmm.
Who's your favorite soccer player?
Jugador.
Ronaldo. Well, that's detailed.
Very good.
Excellent.
I like English class. I like English class because it helps me grow me learn intelligent things.
So it helps him to grow his mind and learn intelligent things.
Great.
Please give us 3 riddles a week in Spanish, so we have to really think about what he's saying, so it's helping us grow our Spanish as well. Lydia?
Hi, my name is Lydia. I'm from Guatemala, and my favorite class is math. And I like math because it is very interesting, and the formula help yourself and
Solve the puzzle.
it is either right or wrong. And also in art I like art. In art class I like to paint because it's very relaxing. And I show my first picture. That is my first picture. Yes.
Did you paint that?
Yes. I use acrylic.
Wow. Amazing.
So good.
It's beautiful.
Really good.
Very good. Oh, beautiful.
Oh, good job, nice colors.
And what grade are you in?
11.
So we're talking about the proms.
Thank you.
Your brother is successfully completing the automotive program at OC's and works with Antonio every morning.
My name is Diego, and I am 17 years old. I'm in 10th grade, and I want to say some things what I like of Esquinales. So I like the activities we do in our class, or I like when we go to. I think we went to soccer game in Syracuse. That was super cool. My favorite season of the year, I think, is when the soccer starts, because I like it when we compete with other school. I like it when we go to practice. That gives me the opportunity to get to know more friends. I like the colors of the school. They are very cool colors. I like the English class because there I can learn and improve my conversation. I like this school because I feel like everyone is very focused and respectful and kind, and that's it.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Pencil drawings. And Delta's considering a BOCES program for next year as well.
That's great.
Thank you.
What in BOCES, do you know?
Wow.
It's the cosmetology, so you'd like to become a barber. That's one of the things that he's considering.
So we'll have to set you up with our high school principal, Mr. Santoro, who's from a long family line of barbers, and he himself cuts hair. We'll have to set you up.
I have another picture there if you want to see it.
Wow. Wow.
It's unbelievable.
He was in the art show.
Amazing amount of artistic and language talent here. I do not possess, so I am extremely impressed.
A couple of months prior to vacation, Delta would come into the classroom every day and draw a little drawing and a inspirational quote. So every day I was looking forward to what was the new picture he was going to leave behind. So thank you. And Ashley?
Okay. Hi, my name is Ashley Fernandez, and I have been in the U.S. like 7 years. I was in Seneca Falls for 4 years, and I have been in Esquinales for 2 years, and I like the support of the teachers that they gave me. Like, I feel like very happy, and I like art, my favorite class, and I made some paintings that
Ashley also played on the JV soccer team this year. So we had 3 students play soccer, and Delta also played basketball.
Yeah, yes, he did.
Oh, that's right. You would not on the faces.
It's unbelievable.
So I just want you guys to know that we've had students come in here the past couple months. They are all just as nervous as you are, and English is their first language. So the fact that you could come in here and stand in front of us, which can be intimidating, and speak in your second language is amazing. And I know I couldn't do it, and I bet you most of us up here couldn't do it, so bravo to you. You have a lot to be proud of, and it's awesome. It's just awesome.
So impressive.
I guess my question for you, and you don't have to answer today, but I hope that we can find a way, if we're not already doing so, if we have all of these students who are fluent in Spanish, and we've got a Spanish program in the school, if we are finding ways to have them help our students and you know, kind of cross over a little bit, because I think that would be an amazing opportunity for both. If there's a way to kind of get some yes, I was looking for the word.
And
Yes.
we do work with SCF. Each Thursday we call it ELL buddies. And so that's how we were able to go to the Syracuse soccer game, and we have an Easter egg hunt coming up. And so a lot of the kids try to speak Spanish with our students, and it's nice just to see them relax and get in that uncomfortable position.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can I just say too that, so I work with some of your friends over at Jordan Elbridge, and you know, just the respect I have for you, because I know it's got to be scary and it's got to be difficult and I know it's difficult for your teachers, and it's frustrating when they want to be able to communicate with you more directly, and sometimes they have to use a phone, and they have to look, you know, to each of you to help communicate with your friends. But what you bring to Skinny Atlas is amazing. I mean, I think you can tell we probably don't have a lot of diversity, and it warms my heart to hear that kids are accepting of you and you know, what you bring. And I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy that you're having a great experience. So thank you for all that you do. And I know your life hasn't been easy. You know, you probably had to switch schools a lot, and you know, like you said, some of you just came to the United States in the past couple of years, and the strength and, you know,
Resilience.
yes, yes.
Some of the stories of your travels to here, your travels to America, and then finally to Skinny Atlas are inspiring and heroic.
Yes.
You are so
Inspiring is the word I would
so impressive,
yes.
and we're so glad you're here.
And thank you for coming and standing up there, even though it's intimidating for everybody. That's very brave.
¿Cómo se dice en inglés?
Oh.
That was right.
Piedras de Espinales. Piedras de Espinales.
Piedras de cineastas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
That is beautiful.
They are just
No, this is just very good.
so impressive. Nice job.
I'll be back. And Mrs. Torney said to regard, she's homesick.
Yes,
Sorry.
Mrs. Lloyd, what is the total number of Ls that we have in the district
In the
now?
district, right, the number changes a bit by around 21.
Thank you for being here.
It's better than the stuff I left.
Eric, thank you for providing that for them. And we have
The logistics of being that, I mean, the little things. We have kids that spent 8 months alone in a detention center in Texas before they came here. And their stories are some of the most inspiring, heroic things you'll ever hear. And their children.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
amazing.
My adult issues and perspective, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
We're ready to continue on, and I really appreciate that. And tonight, real proud to be able to
Absolutely.
So we'll continue on now with the superintendent's report.
Great. I will be so brief tonight because I know last time was a marathon. Tonight is all about budget. So first off, welcome back after break. Just a quick reminder, we had our snow day give back day yesterday, April 18th. My own children did not have a snow day, which I took great pleasure in reminding them of. Until today, when we had an actual snow day in where my kids go to school, but not here. So what goes around comes around. Hopefully this is the last of the white stuff that we see, and then the mud season ends quickly. We can get back out there. The second snow day give back, just as a reminder, is going to be Friday, May 27th, and that again is if we don't lose another day to a weather-related closing. So fingers crossed that will extend the Memorial Day weekend, and that is still the plan unless something changes. Then we'll communicate that to the entire community. One of the things that I wanted to point out, keeping with the theme of biliteracy this year, we offer the seal of biliteracy in New York State. New York State Education Department, starting in about 2018, highlighted a new designation that students that went through a certain rigorous course of instruction in a foreign language and demonstrated proficiency in their native language could get the honor of the seal of biliteracy on their Regents diploma. So in 2018, I think we might have had a student. 2019, we didn't have any students that pursued it. 2020, we had a single student. And then the program started to really expand last year. And some of the work that our foreign language teachers in French, Latin, and Spanish have done to prepare our kids and to get them to present is just remarkable. So 2021, which was last year, we had 7 students that were honored at graduation that had the seal of biliteracy. And then this year, I had the privilege to sit in on all of their final presentations. They're lengthy research projects, basically, but most are delivered entirely in their second language, whether it's French, Latin, or Spanish. And speaking fluently neither of those languages, it is amazing how well our kids communicate and how much you're able to follow throughout their presentations. This year, we're pleased. We have a record-setting 12 high school seniors that received the seal of biliteracy. So that is just a remarkable accomplishment for those kids. I got to say thank you and how impressed I was in person to most of them. I did not get to sit in on all 12 of the presentations, but to our French, Latin, and Spanish teachers that made it possible and all the hard work of our kids, we're just so unbelievably proud. SCF, again, I'm glad Heidi mentioned the overlap there. Some of the work SCF does with our ELL students here is just awesome, from impromptu breakout soccer games where teachers and administrators are invited to, foosball and soda parties back at Heather Carroll's house, and all sorts of other opportunities for our SCF student volunteers to interact with kids and really build real friendships with a lot of the students that come here from foreign countries and other schools or both. So it's just been a remarkable thing, unbelievable positive, especially given the lack of diversity that we do have in the community. It's a real opportunity for all of our kids. And if there's one thing that I took away from their presentation was that common theme of how kind our kids are. And that makes me awful proud. So
I had a student there that went through the seal of biliteracy, and she made a point of telling me that you attended that and appreciated that.
Oh,
so
that's great.
Thank you for doing that.
That's great. It was my pleasure.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up, the purpose of the special board meeting tonight is the adoption of the budget. So whether we had a snow day or not, we were required by law to meet tonight and to talk. And I'll give Connor just a little bit of a warm run right before his presentation. But just a recap, at our last board meeting, the board had narrowed down the school budget increase to 2.15% or 2.56%. A couple of additional pieces of information were requested, which Connor has prepared, but that is the decision that is before the board tonight. And at this point, I will turn it over to Connor.
Thank you. So there is a presentation, as always, but a lot of this you have already seen. I can keep going in depth as we want, or
fly by and get the conversation going of what these two different tax scenarios look like.
And just for the droves of people that are at home watching this, because I know there's hundreds, we went over this at the last board meeting. We had a multitude of scenarios for increases based on all those very cumbersome formulas that you must follow. And as the board, we narrowed it down to these two that we're going to focus on tonight.
Yeah, and additional meetings before that as well.
And, oh yeah, and all the ones before that, but just so that it's clear.
Yep, all this is on board docs, all
Yeah.
this is on our website, and if there's any questions, please reach out to me or Connor directly.
Been an ongoing conversation, so I'll just try to highlight the changes from the last time we met. So just a quick agenda. This is on board docs as well. So propositions again, general fund budget, buses, and the school library levy. Board election information. So again, 4 seats up this morning. We did yesterday by 5 o'clock. All petitions were due. So we had 5 individuals submit their names. And this morning at 9 o'clock, we drew the order that they will be on the ballot. So it'll be Jeff Goldberger, Danielle Fleckenstein, Gary Campbell, Tanya Coleman, and Tim Cavera. So those are the 5 up for 4 possible seats. May 3rd, everybody is invited here during the board meeting to have a 5-minute introduction of themselves as we've done previously. And then on the 17th will be the vote. So just again, challenges in the budget process, just minimum foundation aid increases, tax cap calculations of only 2.84, and just other revenue streams that are very minimal. Always trying to maintain program offerings, additional academic intervention services, substantial increase of social, emotional, mental health initiatives that we've done here and continue to do. And additional extracurricular athletic opportunities just for all students. I think the ENL, ELL students are a great example that all the things that we try to do for them, incorporate them and get them involved in everything is just phenomenal.
Just how that population has increased in our community as well. If you, I think I remember a conversation when I first started, that we had 4, and then it went to 6, and now we are at 21 as we sit right
so
now.
it's just exponentially increased, and they do have Ann Hughes, who's here tonight, and then Heidi Wood and Amy Tormey to handle all that, but it's almost looking like maybe additional support in the near future if that number keeps going up. So increased technology needs, retirements, current and upcoming, 7 this year, more to come. And then federal stimulus aid ready to dry up in about 2.5 years, so it's just forward thinking about how to do that and invest in that. Again, initiatives, a lot of the stuff I just said. Literacy is another big one of wit and wisdom, streamlining that K-8 curriculum. So I said the ENL special education students, just the increased enrollment there. Professional development for staff, we have to look at staff too, we need to invest in them. And then just capital projects, the big investments that the community made in the buildings, and I've just left these slides up here just to show the great improvements that we've made throughout our buildings, because it is a big investment that the community decided to do, so we appreciate that. All right, so on to the scenario. So what does each of these budgets get me? You know, we are maintaining programs no matter what, maintaining current staffing levels with a continued focus on social, emotional, mental health, no increase or decrease, or no decrease into the materials, supplies, contractual, professional development opportunities, or BOCES, and each of these scenarios begins to supplement at least part of these initiatives from this federal stimulus aid that we've been getting, because we cannot not do that because it's just going to be pulled out from under us. Like I said, one of these aids are due in 1.5 years, the others due in 2.5 years. So it's going to be, COVID was already 2 years ago, and that started going quickly, and now it's going to be here before we know it. So with the 2.15 and 2.56 scenarios, as Eric mentioned, so again, that was just the basic model. We are getting maintaining those. These are additional and they're conclusive, so with 2.56, you are getting everything in 2.15 as well. So again, partially offset investment in federal stimulus funds with mental health coordination initiatives. So as we all know, we talked about, we've had the facilities audit. So with the 215, we would have at least 2 new positions with a recommendation of 4 in the facilities audit that is posted to our website if anybody wants to read. And partially fund, we've had a lot of instructional equipment requests, so this is to partially fund some of those requests, not fully all of them. And then the next one, partially fund additional BOCES service requests. And just to put some additional background on that, that's not programs, that's not instructional stuff to students, that's additional BOCES service, so say a software request, for example. So the guidance office is looking to move from Naviance to a new platform for college readiness. So it would be a possible overlap in the platform there throughout the year. So that's not a one-to-one program that we're taking away and not funding. That is additional stuff beyond.
At the last meeting,
request.
the clarification was that we weren't cutting student opportunities at BOCES, which is now what we're doing. Again, it's software package, instructional technology, things like that.
Yeah. So then you'll see the planned use for reserves are the same in both of these. The use of the $47,926 from the EBLAR is the calculation for upcoming retirements that we are taking from the EBLAR reserve. So that's not a hit on the budget. That is just a wash from the reserve coming in and the expense going out. And then the use of $718,443 is the $575,000 we've been carrying of appropriated fund balance throughout the years, and an additional $141,443 for the one-time increase of the MOA that's on the agenda tonight, for that one-time increase to adjust the salaries of CSDA employees. So that will be a one-time increase, and after that it will go back down, planned to the $575,000.
And we're going to get there in a second, but do you want to just tell everyone what CSEA is?
Civil Service Employees Association.
So that covers our custodial workers, grounds crews, TAs,
Not TAs.
or not TAs,
Well, teacher aides.
Aides.
Not assistants.
okay, aides, sorry, that's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah, typist 1s, typist 2s, administrative assistants, mechanics, just civil service appointed people. So that is in the 215. In the 256, additionally what you will receive is additional offset of federal funds for our academic support initiatives. So again, it's not that we aren't doing it, but they are supported in the federal stimulus aid as well as part of the general fund budget. So this is just additional offset of those. So it wouldn't be anything cut, it's just the way it's supplemented. So 256 would get you an additional 2 custodians, which would fully fund those 4 recommended positions for custodians. We would full fund all one-time instructional equipment requests, and then we would have additional extracurricular and co-curricular funding for increased participation and continued success. And that's athletics, before after school activities, anything along those extracurricular activities. And again, the planned reserves are the same as in 2.15. So I can stop here, there can be a conversation, or I can go into some additional things of what the actual numbers look like, what the increase looks like. Any recommendation? Or?
I'm good at this level.
Okay.
I am good at this level.
Yeah, no, I'd rather go to this. We can go to the next and then kind of hash it out.
Okay. So just by the numbers, so 2.15 and 256. So revenue generated is $571,718,000. So at the 2.56, an additional $109,025 for a total of $680,743. So projected tax rates, what they would look like, so we're ranging between, you see 26 at Marcellus and Niles, which has to do with equalization rates, which are out of our control. So these will range anywhere from 26 to about 43 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And just what, so per $1,000 in Skinny Alice, it would be just over $1,400. Just over 14, so 1438, and then to go up it would be 1443. So that's an additional $6.
But your increase is $30.27.
Correct, total.
So just so that's clear, increase is not $1,400. The increase is $30.27.
27 cents.
Or
This is like,
or
so I
36.
charge 36.
Or 36.
Or 36.
Or
Your
36.
annual tax bill will
Go up.
increase.
Yeah, and there's some more on that as well coming. So what this year would look like, so the rate was just over $14 per $1,000 assessed. So on, say, $325,500 home, your bill was $4,193.54 in this current tax year. So for both scenarios, a 2.15 and a 2.56, same assessed value. You'll see the change increase of the tax rate. So at 215, a projected tax bill, so this is things out of our control, our assessments and equalization rates that we have no control in. So it could change, these are just projected based on information we know right now. So with a 2.15% increase, it looks at $4,292.06, which is a $98.52 increase. So on the other side, a 2.56 increase with the change tax rate would be $4,310.85, which is a total change of $117.31, and the difference between these two tax rates is around $18.79. And so the rest of the presentation, just same slides compared to each one. We've gone through the numbers. The presentation I gave last time did the 256, so I can just show the differences. So this is the 215. We're looking at an increase of almost $1.4 million, which is 3.83%. The only changes that you'll see here, there's no change in contractual obligations, no change in debt on borrowing, some change in equipment, as we talked about, employee benefits, custodial positions, OC services, and federal funding. So I'll try to flip back and forth between these two. So additional equipment purchases of $51,000, and the 215 you see $40,000. Four FTE positions for custodial, $140,000, and the 215 $70,000.
So Connor, this is probably a simple question. Let's say we're going to go with the 215 increase, whatever. But the increase year to year is 4.15%. But where's that difference of money come from? We're only asking for 2% and change, but the year over increase is 4%. So just for the community, where's that gap made up?
State aid.
Okay, so
mostly building aid. So the state aid runs are at the end, so we did get the final runs, and we can go over those to show.
But the short answer is we only need to ask for
Correct.
2 and change because the state is giving us more to make up that other roughly 2%.
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, I just don't want people to think that we're
No, that's
then still short. So it's because we're getting a little more money from the state. We only need to ask for somewhere in that 2% range.
correct.
Thanks.
So expenses, very high level, 2.15 and 256. Just a little decrease in program administrative and capital. You see the biggest dip in capital just due to the 2 positions of about, what is that, 70-something thousand. Again, things we went over last time. You'll see the small changes, small dips in program. Sorry, it is kind of small. So we see at the 256, 539, we took out some equipment purchases, 533. So very small decrease to the program side of the budget. Like I said, the biggest side is on the capital side of the budget, where you'll see $118,000 in facilities, which is the operational plan, where the custodians would be. And in the 256, you get the 4 custodians for 193. You'll see that difference there.
May I ask a question or would you like to wait?
No, you shoot away.
So, all right, we've got the 2 extra custodial positions at the higher tax rate. I've got that, I figured out that money. Now, there's some one-time equipment purchases that may or may not happen. If we do not go with the higher rate, are we gonna put ourselves in a position that in January, you're gonna come in and say, okay, so those pieces of equipment that we did not budget for, we have to buy them now. So hey, we gotta figure this out because we need some money and we don't know where it's gonna come from because we have to buy them for whatever functional purpose they serve.
For the main one here, the biggest thing here would be no for that, for the equipment wise, because we've been buying an additional yearly insurance policy each year. We would buy it if you went to the lower rate. If you went to the higher rate, we would replace the machine. So we would have that insurance policy and it would be covered for the next year, but it's time.
But are we kicking the can on that piece of equipment? Because
Absolutely.
how many more years can you buy an insurance policy before they say your car warranty is up and you're out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think from a programming standpoint, both you and Eric said, and I'm not, saying go with either one at this point, but you said, like, you would do your darndest if we needed something from a programming standpoint.
We wouldn't make anything happen, but is it sustainable?
Right.
It'd be on the table for next year, that do you want this or not?
That's why I've always been a little hesitant to say, like, at this you get this, and at this rate you get that. I think the easiest way to figure it out for us is, the cost of an annual employee plus health insurance. Those 2 positions alone make up 4/5 or more of that $109,000 difference between 2.15 and 2.56. So we're talking about small numbers in a big budget. So if there's something that we need to do, we're going to figure out how to do it. The bulk of that difference between the 2 is really, do we hire the 2 people or do we hire the 4 people that were recommended?
And then just the small dip in administrative part of the budget, you'll just see here that the administrative part is we're not supplementing part of taxpayer revenue from federal funds to support the coordinator position for mental health and family support services. So you'll see the increase here that builds part of that into the budget.
Basically putting a little savings pile aside so that when the federal funding for that position is no longer,
Correct.
we can continue to have it.
So for example, if we do supplement for this coming year, we can use that additional $20,000 for a one-time expense where we might not need it in the foreseeable future. And as we face these things in, like Danielle said last time, those one-time expenses, that'll help.
And I think it's unrealistic for us as a board or as a community to think for 1 second that we will discontinue the mental health coordinator position when the money from the federal funding is gone. I think it's become pretty evident based on what we've heard from community members at a mental health forum, what we've heard from Kristen herself, what has come out of some of those by-mass testings and other things, that this is likely a support system that we are going to need to plan for the long term in this district, for our families and for our students.
I'm contacted at least twice a week from other districts asking about our program, what the job description looks like, what the programs that we're offering look like, what sort of services we brought in. So I think we're out in front of this, and I think a lot of other places, you're going to see this become a lot more mainstream, which makes me very proud and happy to be on the forefront of this work, because it has been a long time coming that we destigmatize and normalize mental health supports in school.
I think we even heard, did you hear from my daughter in Boston? Does they want to start? She said she sent
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Christina an
Yes,
email
yes,
because
yes.
she works for Boston Mental Health.
Yes,
And they want to
yes.
start such a program, so.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, regardless of where an individual board member's position is on the tax rate, we do have to keep in mind that things like that position
Yeah, we built that.
there's obviously a need, and we've got to make sure that we have planning appropriately for that.
Well, and it's part of the board's responsibility to be forward-leaning, right? And the scope of it has changed. You know, 5 years ago, it wasn't as significant an issue, but certainly with COVID and everything else we've seen, it's certainly on the front burner now. So we'd be remiss to not budget for it and pretty much make it part of the base load budgeting going forward, because it is one of those base load services.
You know, 5 years ago, school districts across the country threw money at the other side of the mental health crisis, which was school violence. And no one batted an eye when it was time to spend $1 million on bullet-resistant glazing or extra cameras. And I would take every one of those dollars and put them into mental health supports. Because I think you get to the problem first before it.
Well, they were addressing the symptoms,
Right.
the manifestation of what happens when you don't address the core issue. And we're in a fortunate position from a community perspective that we do have, you know, better resources at our disposal. So I don't know that you're going to have any argument or disagreement from anyone regarding the spending of, you know, taxpayers' funds that are supplemented in this regard. I think it's a no-brainer. For want of a better word.
I would just add, when we talk about this, we think about just students, it's adults too. It's,
I would
the amount
say-
of people that come to Kristen, employees just to talk is,
Yeah,
Two,
the family services and the coordination of that, the things that don't show up with the Helio Health or things in school, but just the having a dedicated facilitator to plug people into the community services.
Well, and I
is
think
remarkable.
Just think about the teachers. I
Absolutely.
mean, they're some of the unsung heroes that we do seem to get a whole lot of focus when it comes to mental health and social and emotional.
You know, we talk all the time about doing what's best for kids, and I think there's a collective acknowledgement now that if you're doing what's best for kids, you need to be doing what's best for the people who take care of the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
don't
Absolutely.
forget your counselors.
Yeah. The whole, yeah.
The whole ecosystem, right? And I think, and that is where we got to make sure and keep the focus on the whole ecosystem. Because it is a whole body approach, right? I mean, it truly is.
Well, and I think if you look at what we've done with the reading program and how, you know, we were at State Street and we're expanding it to Waterman, and it's a continuous reading program, not a siloed approach. That's the role that Kristen's playing on the emotional side, not the academic side, but keeping it consistent so that within the buildings, the staff within the buildings can do what their focus is, but with a centralized approach so that it's consistent.
If somebody doesn't own it, nobody owns it.
And so I think,
And if you don't take care of the mental health, your academics don't mean anything.
Boom.
Amen.
And that was it. That's it right there.
yeah.
If absent the mental health, absent the social well-being, guess what? You can throw the best curriculum
Yeah.
out there.
Exactly.
It's a colossal waste of funds. And therefore,
And oh, by the way, throw in more turmoil in the world right now than has been dealt with in, you know, maybe ever for very many people, so.
right.
Well said.
So you'd like us, Connor, to decide, as a board, are we going to put 215 on the ballot or 256 on the
that
ballot
is what
for
is
the
up for
community
discussion,
tomorrow?
correct, yes.
And we've got to make that decision right now tonight, so
Correct.
that you can submit it to,
SED tomorrow morning.
that would be state ed, SED.
Yep, you have to, by law, adopt budget today.
Okay,
Well, I'll start the conversation that, you know, I want to be, you know, cognizant of where people in the community are coming from. You know, I mean, I've seen what other districts are putting up with people's comments, and they're talking about gas and food and, you know, just inflation. But to me, the difference is a night of pizza for my family. So for me, I would support whatever the board decides, because I think either one is fair. But for the cost of my family having pizza one night, I'm willing to go with 256. So,
what about you?
I agree. I think it's, I don't even know if you could do feed your family.
yeah.
Because it's just
Just
such
don't
a
want it home right now, so.
Okay. No, I agree. I think it's
worth it to go with the 2.56 also. It's a small difference.
So let's go to the other end of the table. Amanda, what's your feeling about this?
I'd say I also stand in agreement with the 256. I've asked Connor a lot of questions because this is definitely not my area of expertise, but I think that it plans ahead for the future in a fiscally responsible way.
And Dan, what do you think?
Kind of click back to the one slide you had about the two comparing things right next to each other.
Like what you're getting?
Yeah. The one you're, yes, keep going. No, keep going. That one.
Yeah.
And I brought up last month, with 2.56, my concern is, in the last bullet, additional extracurricular or co-curricular funding for increased participation and continued success. We had a presentation last month where we heard all the good things we're doing right now without that additional funding for that one bullet. Everything else I agree with in that 2.56. I don't understand where the cost is going for that increased revenue for extracurricular and co-curricular activities.
So
That's my big concern, because we had a great presentation, how successful we are, how we justify whatever that amount, and maybe if we can find out what that amount is.
So that amount is $109,000 between 2.15 and 2.56.
But how much of that $109,000, Dan, is what you're asking is going to continued success in the extracurriculars? Is that
Because
what-
I mean, let's look at a great presentation, how successful we are with what we have now, so how does that $109,000?
Between 6,000 and 7,000. So there is, the participation is up high. There has been talks about possibly another team.
It could be another team, it could be another club, it could be transportation to postseason activities, post-COVID concerts and traveling band and all this other stuff for the music and the arts. A lot of this is just coming back to normal.
But of that 109, 6,000 or 7,000 of it is
Yeah, if you see on the transfers tonight, there is a transfer for athletics to move some money around because there was increased expenses.
okay.
Yeah,
That
we would-
might not just be athletics, that could be other.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yep,
It could be
absolutely.
another club, it could be another ensemble, it could be.
It's catering for success in the context of what happened in 21-22. Like, I mean, we went through this in the EDF, where you had to move funds around, you had to do transfers because of how successful, how far the different groups went that weren't budgeted for necessarily because it's one of those things. The expectation is that we're going to have another successful year, and as such, you're making provisions for it.
And some of that cut in both directions too, with COVID and with all the things that we couldn't do. I don't even know if it was necessarily us because of K-8 being open as much as we were, but schools throughout the state saved a fortune on heating and electric and all these different things because of the myriad of changes that COVID caused. For us, it was, fuel oil and gasoline and other savings that were generated just because we weren't driving all over creation.
So interesting enough that you should bring that up is we also should be catering for the reverse, the fuel.
Yeah, and now it all costs more.
Right?
Yep.
And that we're almost certain about, just certainly based on what's been happening in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it just straight CPI is at 7%, so cost of living index, consumer price index is 7%. The train's left the station. It's how fast you're gonna run after it. Right?
Tom, what are you thinking?
So, we'll get to me in a second.
Dan's concern, most of it.
My concern was just because the success we've heard last month, and then what are we putting in $109,000 for? What are we getting out of that moving forward? If we have all the success now doing what we do now, how would that enhance what our students are getting? I guess is my question. What are our students getting with that additional $109,000?
Well, they're getting 2 custodians, they're getting more money towards mental health.
I'm always part of the 4 custodians.
Yeah, is the last bullet you're referring to?
The last bullet is
Right.
part,
Not the,
everything else about it I'm good with, it's just that last bullet.
I think part of it too, and it was a point well taken this last time, I don't think we were as specific as we should have been in listing the extracurricular activities in addition to athletics. It was, I think, as we had it last time, we more highlighted just athletics without referencing all the clubs and activities and arts and the other things that fall within extracurriculars.
I mean, is it possible that that 6,000 to 7,000 is really just the cost of continuing what we already have as everything, I mean, prices increase on everything?
Yeah, very close in that, I mean, like I said, there's some transfers in here that are bringing stuff to athletics, but we have contingencies built in the budget that, do we want to keep pulling from those contingencies if we have continued success, or want to do another fishing thing or stuff like that?
Well, and I think it's important too to say if something else comes up that's good for kids, we're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah, well, we've got to be careful saying that, because if we gonna find a way to do it, gonna find a way to do it, gonna find a way to do it, and it's not coming out of thin air, it means we're going to be pulling it from this bucket, that bucket.
Right.
And we are not saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're so fat in all the budgets, in all the buckets, that we can just pull infinity. We are not saying that.
No.
So we have to be, so, you
No,
know,
with the reserve plan and everything else.
you've got to be super careful that, you know, finding a way to get things done
Yep.
is not infinite.
Mhm.
And also, I think finding a way to get kids involved in the myriad of clubs and activities and sports that we already offer, and doing a better job at tracking the kids who maybe are under-involved or over-involved. Because I think we want to dance the fine line between, yes, we want to offer our kids all kinds of opportunities to keep them engaged and connected to school, but that the answer to that can't always be just form another club with 3 people in it, form another club with 4 people.
It has to
I
be
mean, we have to
participation
do,
driven, absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
and we have to remain targeted in what we really feel is the best for kids.
Yeah.
And just doing a better job. So I think to what Dan is saying, we want to continue what we're already offering, but maybe not necessarily taking a ton of that funding and just saying, yeah, the possibilities are endless. We want to remain targeted in what we are offering, in doing a better job at making sure our families and our kids are interested in what we're offering and utilizing that.
Yep.
And to make sure it's equitable, that the arts get with, you know, sports, but also there's been some discrepancy between boys and girls events as well, so just keeping that in mind, that we're making it equitable for all.
It is the anniversary of Title IX this June.
No?
So, Gary, what's your perception of this?
But first, head of dance,
No,
you good?
That was my one concern.
For all the discussions that we've had, I'm fine with 2.56. And my rationale for that is, in first instance, the chunk of the funding is really, the delta, the 1.4, is really coming from state aid and some of the other programs. So we're not really asking anywhere close to the cap. Well, we're not pushing up on the cap per se. I think we have to keep in mind that there's a fair amount of unknown ahead of us. And if we cut it too close to the bone or rely on transfers, we're going to find ourselves in a bit of a pinch. Again, just looking ahead in the next 9 months. And when we talk about social, emotional, and mental, and we're talking about programs and activities and all that sort of stuff, you know, that is an avenue. That is actually an avenue to help folks come over, you know, overcome those hurdles. So I think at 2.56, I think it seems like a fair number. It's 117 annually, $117.15 or something.
3.1, I think.
Yeah, is what you had. You know, we don't know everybody's situation or circumstance in our community, but it seems, you know, that if everyone carries a little bit of the load, it can actually help us, help give us some insurance. So I think it's a fair number in the context of those things. And with the understanding that we're obviously going to be very responsible with not just adding programs on, which is what we generally should do anyway, and manage the public's funds.
Thanks, Gary. Danielle, what do you think?
I think I'm comfortable at 256 for a couple of reasons. I think it's important that we add the appropriate amount of custodial help. I think it's extremely important that we start putting aside funds to continue the success of the mental health position that we have. And I also want to make sure that we put ourselves in a position, we're always going to need to pull from those buckets for something, but I want to make sure that when Francine or Brian or whoever is in here saying, this is a really tough year, this year has a lot of kids that need reading help, or hey, we've really decided, not only are we going to keep the reading position at the middle school, we're adding 2 at the high school based on the needs of the kids coming in, and we have to put our hands in those little buckets, because I'd love to ask that question. If you don't ask us for stuff, we can't give it to you, and I want you to ask us. I want to keep being able to say that with confidence that there's money in those pots that we can go to in an emergency. And I'm afraid that if we don't go to the 256 now, if we do need to use those little pots for other things, whether it's some more buses to go somewhere or for something else, or we need to plan later on because we didn't plan now to put extra money aside for that mental health position, we're going to leave those buckets empty for the other academic support or student support services that we need. So I feel comfortable at that number so that we can always make sure when we need to reach in the bucket for an emergency situation for the kids, we can do that.
Well, Danielle, really good point too, and again, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but the financial position that the district was in when COVID hit was the difference between what we were able to offer to our kids in this district and what other schools were not, frankly, capable of offering. So that forward thinking, that fiscal stewardship that you're talking about, that's a tangible example of how our kids benefit.
Now it's on you.
Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, I strongly support going to 2.56 in audit, budget, and finance committee discussions. My greatest concern has been inflation and the fact that there's, even at 2.56, there's a significant gap between the revenue that will be coming into the school and the actual expenses that we can anticipate this coming year. Our biggest component of our salary, of our budget by far is our salaries. And there's a lot of salary compression. Recognizing those 4 custodians and the way they came through for us during COVID, and now in a small way giving them the additional help that they've long needed, I think is imperative for us to do. As a board member, this will be the 12th time that I have voted to increase people's taxes. I've done that because I strongly believe in the school district. I know what the school did for my own children, very positively. Most of the people who vote for our budget every year don't even have kids in the district. Or many of the people who vote for our budget every year don't have kids in the district. So I strongly support asking once again for 2.56, asking people to willingly pay their tax bills. And all I can give is my appreciation for the fact that people historically have done that here. I have no idea what the budget vote outcome will be this year. But I know this is a great school district.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. Is there further discussion? Are there further questions for Connor on the business manager report?
Do we have to take a vote on the agreed upon?
No, it's
part of the agenda.
Oh,
So this is just discussion now, and we have to comment on the details. Good question, okay.
It's item E, and I'll give you the dollar amount to be approved. I'll put it up on.
So you'll have to make a point so that it's clear that that's the resolution.
Gotcha. So we'll get we'll spell the details of that when we get to that budget item. But so the budget ask will be for $37,407,110. I'm going to voted to approve on May 19th is the date.
May 17th.
May 17th. Okay.
That was all I had.
Any further questions for Connor before we continue the meeting?
Connor, thanks for all your work on this.
Thanks.
Almost
switching gears.
So we'll continue on then with new business. We are now at items 5A and B on the agenda. This is probationary appointments and tenure recommendations. Probationary appointments, I'd ask for a motion from a board member for approval of Scott Green as custodial worker 1, and then probationary appointment of John Christopher, Earth Science 7 through 12, for a teaching position, and then the salary that goes along with that teaching position, and then the 2 tenure recommendations being for Jen Whipple and for Francine Grinnell.
So moved. Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Items A and B.
I'm gonna, I don't know, is there a difference between recusing and abstaining?
So recuse is if you have an interest in the motion, and you don't want to vote because you have an interest in that motion personally. Abstention is because you choose not to vote for another reason.
So it's not necessarily a negative connotation? Right?
Nope.
It's just indecisive, maybe.
Say that again?
Indecisive
Okay.
kind of thing.
Undecided.
So recuse is if you, for example, have a family member that is involved in
Sure.
a motion,
Okay.
you do not vote for it,
Okay.
you recuse yourself, or if you are a volunteer, for example, in
Okay.
a motion.
I am just going to abstain just because I was looking for a little bit more information and I probably came too late to the game to get it. So,
Okay. Thanks, sir. Okay, further questions, further discussion on the motions, A and B? Combine in the single motion. Okay, then if there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving those probationary appointments as well as the tenure recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do approve those actions, and give particular congratulations to Jen Whipple and Francine Grinnell.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I just want to say what remarkable women and what remarkable leaders and educators these 2 women are. We are so fortunate to have them in the district. Jennifer Whipple has led our special education apparatus here and has been a champion for inclusivity. Francine Grinnell is just a dynamic educational leader. She manages so much of the professional development and growth of the teachers, and has really been the captain of our literacy initiative that is deployed K-8 now. So congratulations to both. So proud
Well
to
deserved.
call you colleagues. Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And next before us is a request for a motion from a board member for the establishment of the administrative position of Director of Personnel and Operations.
So moved. Because we said
Okay,
that.
it's been moved in by Danielle. I'll second that motion. So, with additional second by,
So you didn't need to say.
so is there a discussion on this motion?
6-0.
So I just had a comment because I came late to the game last week, so I wasn't able to participate. But so this was a tough one for me. I don't typically love administrative positions, and this is a big position. But you know, no disrespect to you, Eric, but I needed to hear it from somebody else besides you that this is needed. So Connor, I thank you for, you know, you kind of sold me on the fact, other than Eric, I just needed to hear it from someone else. And also the facility study that, you know, that was completely impartial, and some of what this job entails would, you know, was a recommendation of that study. So probably if I were Carrie Brogan sitting in the community, I would not love it, but you know, as a board member, I support it because, you know, from what I've been told, it's needed, so.
Yeah, I think it was Danielle last week that asked me a great question about the percentage breakdown of the personnel versus the facility spending.
They talk lots about it, I can't remember.
And I think at the time I said something around like 65-35 or 70-30 on the personnel side. However, I think I spent most of my time talking specifically to the facility study and speaking mostly to the facility side of that job. The most important impact, as I see it, this job, is that it will free up the educational leaders in the buildings to do the job of educational leadership, to be amongst the kids, to be in the classrooms, to be supervising instruction, and to remove so much of the administrivia and the duplication of efforts and the inefficiencies that happen with the lack of a personnel department in a $37 million company. So that is really the bulk of that work, is to make sure that the people who we had hired to do these jobs are able to do their intended job. And I'm so looking forward to seeing how that will change everybody's day.
To kind of jump on what Carrie said, I think on its surface, it would be easy for a community member or a board member to say, I will not support an administrative position. We got some, tell people to do more work, figure it out. But kind of working through it in my head, and at the last meeting asking some questions, I think for me it comes back to, we have people in our schools, we have principals and other, curriculum coordinators and whatever, all these other people, and if this gives them an opportunity to focus more on the job that they are supposed to be doing and put more of their time during the day being student focused and engaging with the students or being in the classroom or working on the next version of a literacy program or whatever that may be, then I can kind of take a step back and say, okay, if we can take all that other daily baloney off their plate and centralize it and make it more consistent and more clear and better laid out for the district so that those people in their respective buildings and their respective roles can focus on the job that directly interfaces with the kids, then I can be comfortable with this, because I don't want someone whose job is supposed to be direct student interaction spending their time in an office with the door closed. And so for me, that's a sort of a hang up on this. If this alleviates a principal or whomever sitting in their office behind a computer, not talking to anyone,
Correct. It's hard to manage.
checking off boxes on a form that somebody else could be doing that is not a student-focused role, then I can be more comfortable with that. And then I can kind of get behind it and see the value in it. To the notion of don't hire this role, hire more teachers to teach something. To teach what is my question back, right? Where are we lacking? To say throw the money, in a different direction, sounds really good, but I think we have to look at the bigger picture and the roles and the things that are happening in the building, and how do we make it more student focused and make sure that everything that we have is working well and functioning and everybody's functioning to the best of their abilities. And by allowing our building leaders to focus more on that and our curriculum coordinators to focus on what they're doing and not some of the tasks, the business tasks, I would be comfortable with this, the idea of this direction, I think. So that's kind of my stand.
So I think this is just a position, in the grand scheme of things. What is of more substance is how we make use of this position. And what I'm hearing from Danielle, everyone else, is that whilst the position seems to be merited on a high level, the real question and the real accountability on your part, the thing that we're going to hold you accountable to, Eric, is how this position is actually filled. And the qualities, the trades, the skill set that comes into it. I get how, we talk facilities, we talk HR, we talk about all these things. Far greater than simply approving the creation of a position is the substance behind the position. And that's where we're gonna have the board needs to be really plugged in terms of, and of course rely heavily on your judgment. I mean that's your job, right?
Yep.
In terms of the process and who's best suited to fill the role that you have in mind.
Yep.
And then ultimately it's going to be the results, right? Because this position was created because we identified certain things to be lacking, right? It has to be a special type of individual who will fulfill those requirements. And in fulfilling those requirements, we should have this results. Free teachers up to do what we're supposed to. Not have people spending all day behind closed doors dealing with issues and not taking care of curriculum. Right? We've had great success. We just provided tenure to a couple guys who've actually been the fabric of having time in different schools. We've had great success, and I think the objective here is to try and do the same thing as from a campus level,
Yeah,
right?
from
So-
an organizational structure level.
From an
yes,
organizational structure level. So that's where the rubber is going to be the road. I'm fine with us approving, my vote is to approve the position, but bet your bottom dollar that the next set of conversations will revolve and should revolve around the caliber and capabilities of the person who fills that role relative to the objectives.
Yep.
So just to clarify, this will be a contract position, non-tenure, and it's an administrative position.
The tenure area, you create the tenure area
Okay,
for the Director of Personnel and Operations. You can be granted, like a best example is another school district is assistant superintendent. A lot of assistant superintendent positions are tenure track positions.
So this is a tenure track.
okay. So what are we creating here?
It is a tenure track position,
Okay,
but it's its own designation.
okay.
And it's 5 years to tenure, 4 years to tenure?
It would be,
Oh.
it's four for an employee new to a district, it's three for a current employee.
an employee. So, depending on the person that's hired. Further discussion on the motion? Further questions for Eric?
I think I would just echo, a lot of the sentiments that have already been said. I really needed to hear last time that, these issues have been ongoing before COVID, and that this is not a reaction to specifically a lot of the personnel issues that came up during COVID, and that we're really addressing, I think you've used the word orphaned tasks
Yes.
over the course of many years and many superintendents. But again, what Gary said about how I'd like to really hear from administrators how this is let them be able to focus on, mission critical, which is getting in with kids, instruction, that focus, and really hearing the effects of that.
And you will. No, I think, and Connor can probably speak to this best, as Connor's been here 8 years. I'm not the first person to propose this. This has been discussed for many years. You've tried different things, Tom, you've been through this as well. From an organizational structure standpoint, part of our job is, making sure we have the right people in the right seats. This is a gap, and this is a gap that prevents so many other things from happening as they should, because they spend their time bogged down in process procedure breakdowns, administrivia, and similar to how Kristen Moses owns the mental health apparatus for the district, and Jen Whipple owns the special ed apparatus for the district. If nobody owns the thing, nobody owns it. And this has been a can that's been kicked down the road here for as long as Connor's been here in our conversations. And the complications and the duplications of efforts and the inefficiency that it causes impacts everybody. So we will be very communicative about what's going to look different and how it looks different as this goes forward.
And you anticipated July 1
Yes.
start date?
Yes.
I think as we go forward in this process is that we have to have a clear plan to look to the board of how this position is going to benefit every administrator in the district and what's going to be alleviated from the plate. So we're just not creating another position to create a position, but the benefits for the administrators at Waterman, State Street, middle school, and high school, and the curriculum department, et cetera, how their direct focus can be on student-focused activities. And then this individual then will handle the paper type processes that have been an issue historically here in the district office, with the combination of this position being switched to this position and that position over the course of years. My short time on the board, we've had different people in numerous different positions from the superintendent on down to various administrative positions that have created those gaps. And we need to get a person in that position to alleviate those issues so we don't have the wrong person in the wrong position. And that comes down to certification issues and things along those lines.
Yep.
We've been through, the legal issues in the last year. And those things, if it takes that off your plate and gives it to somebody else and you focus back on what you're here to do, education on the students and the staff in the district, that becomes your priority. And we need to see that as your priority, and then this individual assumes those other responsibilities.
Yep.
Is there further discussion on the motion? The only thing I would add is, again, 12 years of experience here and seeing many different people in the superintendency, and frankly, many people moving through the board, many different board members. I believe Gary's going to be the senior board member with 7 years of experience. Yeah. So in the absence of having an ongoing, continuing presence in the district office, thankfully Connor's here with 8 years of experience. Thankfully, we got some other great people in the district office, but we have needed extra help at times, which we have not had, and some of this falls onto the board, and that is a very difficult position for the board to move in and to fill some of the needs that happen in these voids. So I certainly hope that's changing now with you here, Eric. But it is a very real void that we have had in the school district. We've worked around it, and people have risen to the occasion in many cases. But there have been gaps, and at times it has been painful for people in the school district. And I think this position will help to create a standard operating rhythm, standard operating procedure, and will lessen the pain that some people have experienced within the school district. And that would be a good thing for everyone, and will ultimately be a very good thing for our students too. Because stability in leadership, stability in operations, has a positive benefit for how kids learn in a classroom. It doesn't seem like there's a direct connection, similar to what Danielle said about no one wants to add an administrative position. You really want to add student-facing positions. Well, we're a small enough school district, so everyone here has an impact on students, and that's very clearly shown here.
And I expect our administrators to be student-facing.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. So, as moderator, I don't like to bias the discussion, but everyone else spoke before me, so that's my So any further discussion? And if we're ready to vote, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion does carry. Okay, continuing on. This brings us to the addendum to the superintendent's employment contract. I'd like a motion from the board member for us to put that addendum before the board.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Carrie.
Second.
Seconded by Danielle. So, discussion on this motion. I'll provide context on this. This is a motion that's standard operating procedure for boards of education. Superintendents within New York Public Schools are always on a contract basis that rolls forward for a period of time. When Eric came on board, we brought him on board with a 5-year term. This proposal allows the board to continue that 5-year term under a mutual agreement between the board wanting the superintendent to stay here and the superintendent wanting to stay here. So the operating procedure for the board is that we begin talking about the superintendent behind his back in January, and we have discussions along the way. To some degree, this happens by something uniquely that we do on this Board of Education, which we are a board of peers. Any board member can rotate into agenda setting. It's not just between the superintendent and the board president on this board to create the agenda for the school district. Anyone who wants to be on agenda setting can raise their hand and say, yeah, I'd like to help set the agenda for the upcoming meeting. And we do that periodically at the end of the meetings. So that also gives a chance to give direct feedback to the superintendent and for board members to learn about some of the challenges that the superintendent faces. So anyway, this is all part of a bigger picture. The board has met and created a formal evaluation for the superintendent. We did that tonight in executive session. I have been empowered by the board to communicate that the board has created an evaluation for the superintendent. And that's kind of where we stand now as the context for this motion. I think I'm talking too fast.
No, thank you for that. Thanks for the addition.
So, given that context, are there any questions, not for the superintendent in this case, but between board members? Okay, then if we're ready to vote, all in favor of approving the extension of Eric's contract for another year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the board does approve your continued presence here with our appreciation.
Sincere thanks.
We'll continue to work here.
Honored to be here. I love this school, I love this community, and I will not let you down, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are at item E, which is the adoption of the budget for the upcoming year. This is a motion that would approve us putting now the budget before the public, who ultimately has say on yes or no on the funding of the school district for the coming year. And the consensus of the board by prior discussion during the school business manager report was that we would put a ask on the part of the public for a 2.56% increase. We'll send out a copy of the report card that gives all the details financially at a high level. But then many further details have been provided by Connor's presentation, had a couple public presentations on this also, and responded to some requests for information in addition from people who have specific items of interest. So given that context, any questions presumably for Connor on this, any last minute thoughts that people have?
One just last minute thought, will there be any, between now and the vote, community, held opportunities for people to ask further questions?
They can, open door policy, there's always, we get emails a few times a week
you.
from community members and feedback and
Okay.
bounce back. So there's always, doors always open.
Yep, okay.
For me as well.
All right, that's
Thank you, Craig.
Any further discussion? Okay, then all in favor of approving the budget for the coming year with the 2.56% tax increase request for proposition before the public, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we do approve that for further action on the public's part.
I'm sorry, we
Basically.
didn't take a motion in a second for that, I just want to make sure we don't.
Yep, we did take a motion. The motion was from,
For the budget vote?
yeah.
I don't know if we did. We did.
I just want to make sure we don't
Okay.
procedurally get it wrong, sorry.
Okay, thanks, I thought I jumped ahead then. So, a motion for us to adopt the budget for the coming year and 2.56% increase.
So moved. Got everyone on
All right,
that.
so that was a unanimous motion. Let's say Danielle made the motion and who seconded it? Amanda seconded it. Okay. So, sorry about that, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. So, once again, any final discussion? Okay, then all in favor of us approving that budget and the 2.56% increase request, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we do approve that in good order. So thank you, Superintendent Knuth.
Thank you to the board.
Okay, we'll group items F through K together. These are all the remaining items under new business. This is approval of the property tax report card, the memorandum of agreement with CSDA on pay for various positions, the approval of the school calendar for the coming school year, financial reports for March, budget transfers, got 28 of them, mostly are just recoding for how we code systems on budget items on the budget. The 5 were transfers for budgetary purposes. And then the last area of approval under this group of motions, is the Committee on Special Ed, Committee on Preschool Special Ed reports. 1 preschool and 6 special ed reports. So a motion from board member for our approval of K through F.
So moved.
It's been moved by Amanda and seconded by Rebecca.
Hey, Tom, can I just have just a clarification?
Please, Connor.
For agenda item F, there are 2 property tax report cards attached. So can you just clarify that you're approving the 2.56 report card?
Thanks.
And then I will take off the 2.15 because they had to be done to be completed tonight. So
Thank you. So that's now part of the motion. Part of the motion is our approval of the 2.56% property tax report card and our removal of the 2.15% report card. Good, thanks. Any discussion? Connor, anything out of the order on the March financial reports?
nope, all status quo.
Okay.
Now, if Eric or Connor could give us, with the CSE memorandum of agreement, what that does for our staff in the CSEA, how that benefits them moving forward.
Yes, so we took, so going back to the facilities audit, we were understaffed. Our efforts at correcting being understaffed even prior to the facilities audit was really hindered by the pay rates. So every member of our CSEA is getting an additional 2% over and above their contractual obligated 3% that they already had. And then what Connor and our friends over at Probationary did was we identified those members of the CSEA that were at the bottom third of the pay scale, and in hopes of bringing some parity to their pay across the region, they're getting that additional percentage increase that brings them up with their peers across the region. Thank you.
That was a nice surprise for them when they got that.
Absolutely. Well, as well as deserved, given what they've gone through.
It really is. You know, certain positions really were make and break positions. I think in a normal year, but especially with all of the complications of COVID, and the folks that we have here have just been tremendous, and we want to keep them and pay them a fair living wage. So thank you for that board support of us.
I know, and I should clarify that, it's not like it was a gift, it's fair. You know, I mean, it's what they deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion on approval motions, items F through K. Okay, then if there's no further discussion, I believe we're ready to vote. All in favor of us approving items F through K, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we do approve those motions. And we're now closing items, process review, agenda planning for the May 3rd board meeting. The close date is going to be Tuesday, April 26th, 4:15. And that's Amanda, Becky, and Danielle.
April 26th. If we could do it early, if we could do morning, I can do it April 26th in the morning.
That works better for me.
Can we move, but, or morning like earlier than 8:15? Would that work for anybody? Like, is it understanding the work?
It'll be here the 27th. Just,
Yeah, Amanda,
I know
Becky,
we're gonna be here the 27th.
What's that,
that'll work for
I just wanted to
everybody.
add conversation that the BOCES thing is the 27th,
Yeah.
and we're on the 27th,
Oh,
so it might make sense
we
to
could
do it
just
right after
tack
that.
it, which is that's a 7:30 vote, right?
Yes.
It shouldn't take more than half an hour. You want to just?
Oh, yeah, the BOCES thing should take about 3 minutes.
Takes 5 minutes maybe.
So I can stay after the BOCES vote.
Yeah, I turn the 27th.
Yep. So that is why you were the business guru. Very efficient way to do things, so good job. So do we have a team assembled for that?
Danielle, Amanda,
Can you
and
write it down? I have it.
Yeah, we need that, so that would be on the 20, the morning of the 20.
Yeah, and we'll do the BOCES vote, yeah, we got that.
We'll pass
Rebecca,
it.
Danielle, and
That works for
Amanda?
me.
Great.
Okay,
All
yeah.
right, good, we got the green team back. All right, next is an item of discussion, and that's proposed board meeting dates for the coming school year and a proposed earlier start time, perhaps of 6 o'clock start for the board meetings.
Rebecca, the the calendar was the same except for 1 month, correct? I think we took the second meeting in April away, and our hopes is moving up the budget adoption earlier in April, so we're not at the deadline like we are today. And then the other piece was any discussion about 6 o'clock board meetings, if that would be more convenient for people.
So that would present a problem for executive session if we, they're going to move the executive session to 5 o'clock. Which would present a challenge depending on what.
Well, could the executive session be a different day? Or does it have to be that?
No.
You'd have to start a board meeting to go into exec.
Okay.
That would be my one reservation.
And I prefer to stay at 7, just given the time frame to get back home from work.
Sure.
I can be flexible with either.
Yeah, I'm indifferent. You know, I would love to say, geez, maybe if we move it earlier, we would get so many participants. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to change anything, so I can be flexible.
Any interest in meeting halfway, maybe?
6:30, I know some districts have their
6:30
meetings at
doable then?
6:30, yeah.
Yeah, I can make it work there. Just 6 dinner time.
I mean, what's the thinking behind it? Is 7 o'clock too late? What's the rationale behind it?
Most school districts hold 6 or
6:30,
6:30
yeah.
meetings. It's just sort of the norm.
Or maybe for some reason we moving 7. Yeah, in perpetuity.
I love to,
There's always been kind of stuff about for board member meetings, we have had exactly
after, yeah. You guys used to go till midnight,
And
yeah.
I'll tell you, that's a killer.
Yeah,
I could do it.
That's a killer for everybody.
not great.
Well, it just makes no sense though, you know, because you're talking about things after the fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go, do we have to decide on what times board meetings are that start next year?
Just a conversation.
No,
Okay.
this is just talking.
We can, I'm fine with the dates. We can maybe decide.
Dates are okay, and then we'll continue the discussion about 6:30 or 7.
Sure, yeah.
Sounds good. Any further announcements? I'll go through the announcements. OSIG's budget vote, as we mentioned, is going to be Wednesday, the 27th of April, right now at 7:30 a.m.
Sorry, just one, this is a nice thing. The annual Cayuga Onondaga School Boards Association dinner is back by popular demand. And we have students that are selected to join us as an honor. And I've actually never attended one since I worked here because of COVID. And I heard it's great. And I'm looking for 2 board member volunteers to join me.
When is that?
It is at the Aurora Inn on May 26th at 5:30.
What day of the week is that?
On Thursday. Yes,
That must be right.
it is a
Or-
Thursday.
I could probably do
The
that,
Memorial Day.
unless there's a sectional game that night, we better be at sectional.
Okay. I got a maybe from Carrie.
Tom, what about you?
Unfortunately,
It doesn't just have to be 2 though, right? Everybody can go if they want, but
I was hoping
we
for
have a
at
hard
least
time
2.
getting to.
Yeah.
It might be a maybe for me.
Yeah.
The only reason I need an answer is I have to RSVP
Okay.
When is that?
and pay the bill.
Maybe the
May 1st.
district will put us up as a spa, Amanda.
it's not
You
going
know
to
what
happen.
I thought we did the regular meeting ads.
Oh, okay, yeah.
After we move it out of your pay.
Because it's a hair massage area.
So the final announcement is, or second and final announcement is the regular board meeting will be on the 3rd of May, and this is the board meeting at which candidates for board seats are invited to present their qualifications for candidacy before the public. So we will have that at the meeting on the 3rd of May, our regular board meeting. And then the last item of interest, of course, is the budget vote and the Board of Ed meeting, which is, and the certification of the vote, which is on the 17th of May. And this is the big school vote, 17th of May. Okay.
Tom, I just have two
Yes.
things for, they probably both go more in the superintendent report,
I
but
think I know what
you
they are.
segued so nicely. I'll start with the easy one. Strat plan update. We had that cancellation.
Had the cancellation, Kevin McGowan and I have been going back and forth trying to finalize those dates. As soon as we lock in meeting 2, all of the community participants will be re-invited to that date, and then we'll lock in meeting 3. which
So
is the
today is
final
Tuesday,
date.
let's get a date set by Friday.
We're
Right.
absolutely.
A date set by Friday,
That's
a
the
date
plan.
set by Friday.
So we're losing ground
Yes.
quickly,
Yep.
getting that
Momentum.
done.
Yeah,
Yep.
date set by Friday. Communicated by Friday, 7th Thursday. Yeah.
So Friday,
Busy. Let's go.
okay,
Okay, thank you.
I know what the other one is.
You do, it's coming. We have the state aid runs in, our UPK funding. Are you hooking back up?
We can.
I'd like to propose to the board, we really look into this. There's funding on the table that we take a very close look at what a UPK program in our district would look like for our kids, the community, the district as a whole. If that means putting together a committee that could meet with Pat Brown and Jen Whipple and, taking a much deeper dive. It's almost May. We keep lobbing it out there. The state aid runs are in. To use Gary's words, I have a hard time saying no, or finding that it's a hard no, that
Well,
we can't do anything with this funding. Sorry.
No, to kind of jump on and cut you off, Patricia, I'm sorry. We're getting the money. There is no consequence of us holding a pre-K program for 1 year, a lottery program, because there's only a limited number of spots, and seeing how it goes. It is not a program that gets inserted somewhere between 5th and 6th grade and will mess up some kids because then we can't sustain it the next year and it impacts them in their further trajectory. A 1-year trial with the money that is there, the only thing it's going to cost us really is finding some space and a mini potty. But let's give it a whirl for 1 year, and if we look back on the year, and I almost want to say in the most respectful way, enough with the committees. We don't need a committee of people to sit around and be like, should we take the money and test it or not?
So.
Let's test it. I'm saying like, do.
Just to clarify, we don't get $200,000 plus.
Yes.
We get $5,400 per child that we do. We have one usable space that we believe we identified at Waterman. So if your question is, can we pilot a class and do a lottery for a single class, that is something that we can look very seriously at getting going and hopefully.
But then I would say, I hear what you're saying about the committee, love enthusiasm,
Yeah.
this is like a passion of mine. Then, let's meet next week, this week. Whoever needs to meet, whether it's board members, if we have to walk into Waterman and look at what that space really looks like, talk with Pat Brown about what that would look like, housing these kids in let's not say we're going to put together a committee or say we're going to talk about it. Let's date on the calendar.
And I think, and guys, correct me if I'm speaking for you, but no one's talking about rolling out a full, all 112 kids. We're talking about a class.
We're probably talking about
a singular class
16,
as a test.
14 to 16
Yes,
kids.
So let me ask you that. I didn't realize it was 5,000 per kid. Is that- It's not.
It's
It's
5,400.
not.
So-
So there would be, as Danielle said, we just take the money and try it. It's not as simple as that.
Yeah,
So
right.
If you do
I mean,
54,
doesn't a regular a 7th grader like 17, 18,000?
if you do $5,400 for 14 kids, that's just $7,000. A teacher and an aide
With
is
health
more
insurance.
than $75,000. So that will have a direct impact on the budget, not including furniture, supplies, materials.
Separate bus.
Those are one-time costs,
Transportation.
for the most part.
We just want you to be aware.
Right.
That's
Question either, I'm not
These kids
trying
are
to, but.
that much smaller than kindergarten. I mean, I had toilet.
Is an issue if we're talking about doing a grade level, because that's a capital project renovation. That's this building probably. We're talking about a classroom we probably already have at Waterman that we can do this. We don't need new, all this other stuff. But to Connor's point, there's always the hidden cost, and it's not that we don't have, what's that number, Connor? 226,800.
226,800,
We
so
do
that's
not,
42 students.
no one is writing us a check for 226,000. We get $5,400 per child. Yeah, and that's a big distinction.
And it's full day, it's not half day, it's full day.
And all rules that go with those positions, so it's an open lottery. So that could necessitate a third hire in a classroom if we have a child that has special needs or disability that requires additional services. We would have to be prepared to hire and provide for those children as well.
You
So,
would have them the next year in kindergarten.
correct.
So we're giving them a leg up.
So you're getting a leg up on
Services in pre-K, right?
But there would be an impact on the budget.
Connor,
Absolutely.
is there a risk that if we snub our nose at this money this year and say, listen, we're gonna commit to doing it, but we just can't get our ducks in a row, we're gonna do it next, that if we don't take any of it, that then does it put like a little mark on us that says, you don't want it, well then we're not gonna offer it again? Okay, so that won't impact.
We did that last year. So we had that, it was too late in the game by the time they offered it, and it was $118,000, and now it's up. However, we don't know. I don't think they're going to hold it against us, but we also don't know if we'll ever get it again anyway. And that's
This
the
is
other
big.
sort of hidden.
Like I said before, it will have an impact on the tax cap, will have an impact on the budget, that will need to be collected from the taxpayers.
So if you're asking me, can we put together a plan for a lottery? Can we try to make this happen for a random lottery selected group of children not to exceed maybe 14, 15, 16 kids? And again, I haven't looked at the space, I haven't sat with Pat Brown to talk about actual numbers, and then we have to do the hiring and all those other things.
But I guess that's what I'm asking for. And then at the end of it, if it is not what is right and the funding isn't what is needed, then we say, then we can rationalize publicly to our community why we keep essentially leaving this money that the state is giving us.
I can have an answer by the end of next week on this, on how we, or a recommendation for the board, I should say.
Okay, I would suggest the answer has numbers in it.
Yeah.
And say that if we want to do a pre-K program,
It's gonna cost
this
us
is what it's going to
plus 50,000 or whatever it is,
Yeah,
right?
just work it like that and have it be able, let it withstand scrutiny, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to strip it down.
Yep.
I think we need to differentiate those one-time costs versus the ongoing stuff.
And the one-time costs are really another teacher and another aide.
Those are ongoing.
Salary and
One
benefits.
time cost
will
me
be
for our
separate.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. But if we don't sustain that, or if we can't sustain that,
Yeah.
and there's no
There are
progress,
contingencies in the
Yeah.
budget to shift around, but like,
I'd
it
also like to point out
might
too
not be
that
sustainable.
when you recruit, and you're recruiting for a pilot program, that's a tough recruit, because people don't necessarily have that, you know. So I'm not just trying to poo-poo the idea, because truthfully, I want it for our community, I want it for our kids. But I just want the board to have all the clear information.
Right,
So-
like Becky had a really good point.
Yeah,
Break
yeah.
out those fixed costs.
Yep.
Break out the one-offs, because then we know if we want to, because see, what we're going to be able to do after that is see whether we can run a program of 10, 15, 20, 11, 5, 7 kids.
Yep.
We make the investment, and once we can't run it for 25 or 30, we can run it for X.
Yep.
Because then now we get into budgeting and forward leading in terms of what we can do, right? But the struggle we have is that we just, and you guys take it the right way, all we hear is your take on it.
Yeah.
Remember, for the facilities audit, to get 4 full-time positions in the budget, what was required? A facilities audit, right? So the party came in, they stripped it all down. I mean, you had a gut feel. You had a gut feel that, hey, this is what we need.
Yeah.
But then you had this thing happen, boom, boom, boom. We saw the numbers, we sat in on the presentation, and we were like, son of a gun. Guess what? We need 4 full-time positions.
Yeah.
and now everybody's on board. So
Yeah.
I think, foster, it is difficult. It is, for me, to see funds out there and to think that we can be creative in terms of leveraging it to some extent.
Yeah.
And it may not be the conventional approach. It may not be do that classroom, and maybe someone mentioned, and we don't know all the nuances of the arrangement, but it may be partnering up, it may be supplementing, it may be 5 positions in 4 different schools, 50 schools that are there. Again, I don't know the details of
So
the...
that's the work that we've done, is
Right.
going through the rules, and they're a lot more strict. If you remember, our last conversation was, hey, maybe we don't take their money, and maybe this is something that we want to run as a community, and we determine how we want to select kids, and it was planned as like I know formerly we had sort of like a bridge to K program that was really successful in Waterman.
Yeah, DK.
Right.
Yeah.
But we can't do that. We can't do that because of the rules and regulations for how the kids have to be identified and selected. And it can't be half-day, and it can't be off-site, it has to be here and full day and everything else.
So we just need to get an appreciation for that.
Yeah, sure. Joanna Schmidt is doing her administrative internship, and we've asked her to wade into this too, and we've had a number of meetings already to talk about this. Her and Mr. Brown were meeting this afternoon to talk about it again, because as soon as I saw the aide runs over vacation, I texted Mr. Brown to say, find a classroom, please. I think I've identified a usable spot, but again, it's not going to be, I just wanted to be very clear. We're not getting $250,000. It's that $5,400 per kid. And there is going to be a cost, so if that's what the board decides to do, we just want to have you
But
have
see,
all the
that's,
info.
I guess that's my question, because the numbers are not my thing at all. So tonight we approved the budget. The voters vote on a number, and it's kind of, obviously you're not going to take advantage of it, but you're at discretion to do with it what you want with that number. So if we did this next year, it's not budgeted. So for whatever we go over, the $5,000 per kid, it has to come from the budget we approved tonight.
That's the finance.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so I'm not,
So I don't think, if our mindset is similar to how it was at the last board meeting, that we're talking about a single pilot, then whether it says $1 million or $100,000 up there, it doesn't matter, because we would still access that same 5,400 times X amount of kids.
But we could use some of those federal funds that expire in 3 years and have a very broad use. So we could actually dip into those to offset this, and that does not impact our budget. Right?
Correct.
But I can tell we're giving Connor a heart attack.
No,
Question,
Could
we use those-
Conversation.
those ABCD, CPP, COVID,
Yes.
whatever it was. We can use that COVID federal funding if we decided to, and dip into that to cover any
We
shortfalls.
would have to go into a different bucket because that's specific has different specific uses for COVID funds.
So some of the grants are-
program.
Oh, okay.
That's not one of the.
Oh, not to start one, to sustain student
To sustain
learning,
one.
but not to start new
But
student
just
learning.
simple numbers, $65,000 for a teacher, $35,000 for an aide or assistant, that's $100,000. 14 kids in a program, that's $75,000. You're already at a $25,000 loss. Not loss, deficit, let's call it, without benefits, without material, so we can do numbers, I'm willing to.
I'm doing numbers because if you say $250,000 is the number, and we back into it, okay, our deficit is going to be $150,000 or something.
Absolutely.
Do we have, and then we start scrubbing some of the reserves that we may have that may qualify, and then we come up with zilch, or we come up with halfway there. Either which way, we've thoroughly interrogated
And
the possibility.
I think an important piece of the conversation, I know it's a lot of money, you're probably like shooting daggers at me right now, but it would be interesting to hear how many of our incoming kindergartners in a normal year, COVID aside, have not attended one of our private preschool programs locally. How many kids and families can't afford to pay that tuition or can't transport their kid there.
So the only thing, I'm not saying that's not important, but that's, and I mean this in the most sensitive way, not relevant to whether we can do the pilot program because it's gonna be a lottery. So you're not necessarily, that can't be,
But I think it's,
I think it's important in the bigger discussion, but not to see if the pilot program will work, because in a lottery, you don't know.
That was our first thought, was to do just that, was how do we target, like, CPSC, how do we target economically disadvantaged? And it was like, right away, the rules say you can't do that.
but I
But
think.
to Amanda's point, my kids didn't go because I had them in daycare and couldn't transport them. My kids never did.
And we may have families that have already signed their kids up for a local preschool. They've already paid that down payment. They will enter their child into that lottery.
Right.
There's a piece of it. And I think it gives some justification if we were to even entertain this pathway at all. If we can say to our community, hey, we typically have like 30 kids out of an incoming class of 70 who have attended a private preschool program. So while it doesn't impact the lottery, while this would be a pilot 1 year, what we're really looking at is this something that would work for our community and why should we entertain it in the first place?
And it's eye-opening to hear that.
So I still think it's while it doesn't impact lottery and everything, I still think it's an important piece of conversation to bring to the table.
I think if we can do a lottery and we have a huge, if we have a huge interest, I think that may help us dictate how we move forward in this too.
How we budget the next
So would it be fair to say for the May 3rd meeting, which is in 2 weeks, that we have some more discussion on this topic, but with actual, this is what we're gonna, this is the 61,212 that we're gonna get for the 15 kids. This is what it's gonna cost. Here's the discrepancy.
Yep.
So that the board can look at that.
We just wanted everybody to hear us publicly say we do not have $226,000 because that was the initial, the text messages that started right after that were, holy cow, we have all this money, and it just it does not work that way. Really, I wish it worked that way, but that'd be great.
It wasn't just that there's so much money, it was just that the discussion we were having was about 18.
Right.
We started with 118, and then when the final run came out, boom, we saw 225. So the question was really, okay, how does that change the landscape? And the answer is, we're still back to 5,400 per child, which is so that's what we're going to see. That gives us 5,400 divided by 226. How much kids, and then what the cost of supporting those kids would be. So we got to find out what the cost of.
Right, and then the other piece is we don't have room for more than one classroom.
Right, so we back ourselves into it. One classroom has a capacity of what, 15?
Yep.
All right, so we say, boom, 15 is the most we can accommodate. Do the math, and then back into it, and then see what it goes.
We have a model already in place that we've sourced for how to do the lottery. I mean, we right down to letters, like we're set, we know how to operate that part of it. It was just making absolutely certain that we had the space to do it, finding out what the appropriate number is. But I'd also like to say too, like when people speak in broad terms about what's an appropriate number of kids in a classroom, as a high school English teacher, I never had less than 30 kids, no problem. You walk into a kindergarten with 30 kids in it, God help you all. Or you walk into a kindergarten or a UPK program that may have 12 kids in it, and 2 of those children have severe disabilities that require a lot of additional support. So when we're talking about numbers, just be thinking about all the nuances of what is appropriate in a
I think the transportation needs are different for pre-K as well.
It does, yeah.
They can't.
And I would challenge you too
Different costs and
to
challenge.
kind of think outside the box. When JE started it, we had it in the middle school for 2 or 3 years until we found space in the elementary school. Not ideal, but it certainly wasn't horrible. So let's not just pigeonhole it that we need 4 classrooms in Waterman, Maybe initially, it's not ideal, like I said, but that shouldn't be
in late April, yeah, we're looking at Waterman.
Well, right, but I think that is something to consider. And also, I'm kind of curious, in our have a pre-K program, right? UPK. I'd like to know, that's something I'm gonna just look at.
Who has it?
Who has it already?
I
Who
can
hasn't
find that
already?
really quick.
And the other thing I think we ought to consider as we make this decision is some of the things that we can't actually measure yet, but there could end up ultimately being a cost savings later.
Right.
Based-
Reading teacher or something.
Yeah,
Animation services.
Yeah, and which I know is hard to really measure now, but I think it needs to be considered, as well as just a lot of other benefits for these kids.
I want a UPK through a vertically aligned university curriculum. Get a year earlier, that'd be, how could that not help?
I think in Lafayette they had it also in another school at first, which does not make things easy because if you throw a UPK in a high school, do you have a playground? That's another thing to even consider in the cost is the playground appropriate or what do we have to do that to make it?
Just so the public knows too, once we started talking about the rules for those funds and we didn't think that we could use all of them here, what we investigated was how to inject those funds into the providers already in the communities.
Right.
They're like, hey, can we get you wisdom materials? And the rules were so restrictive on how we can spend those dollars.
But I believe that there's a piece of it where you can additionally partner to some degree with the
So
community.
some schools have done that, where they have a community partner operate on site. But I think for us, for me personally, if we're going to start a UPK program, I want to control who the teacher is.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know what their professional development is. I want them teaching our curriculum and all of those other things.
Oh,
So if we're going to do it, we should do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Others are making use of it, right?
Yep.
So there's something that's happening. I don't know if they have a bigger bucket. I'm saying, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, when we say it, the money varies by community. So communities that have greater need and a weaker tax base will definitely get more money per child. So we get a fraction of the money that's actually required to educate a child. And I'm not being negative or positive on the motion. There's no motion, so it's just discussion. But a community that doesn't have our tax base would get a lot more per slot to educate those kids.
And
exactly that reason, right? Because your community, your tax base is different, it makes certain assumptions, and hence, what they give us is smaller.
I know that the school district went through a facility study years ago, and there was talk of closing Waterman, and it was like a whole big political thing. And now we have enough kids that are enrolled that building is stuffed. And oh, by the way, we have Helio health providers, and they're occupying classrooms, and they have space requirements to have that stuff. So we don't have the space I think that we thought we once did. But can we find some space? Yeah, we'll find some space.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. I remember when we were considering consolidating classes and all that, because the population was down, folks were moving to the neighborhood, to the area. And boom, here we are on the flip side. So, part of our mandate is to be forward-leaning, try to anticipate. You know what is going before us. We know COVID has had a certain impact on social, emotional, mental. We absolutely know those things. So part of our mandate is to put things in place. One of them, potentially, depending on where the numbers shake out, be some form, shape, or fashion of a UPK, so we get the process going sooner. To the point that we said earlier, it's going to pay dividends in the long haul, which means the cost of the other programs that we're supplementing may come down with time. It's all speculative. But I think that's where the analysis needs to be.
So that's a good point. Address student needs earlier, and potentially you have
a 14-year academic
more
program.
manageable student.
That's a selling point.
I would just like to maybe request that because we can keep going around and talking about this, but I would prefer that we wait till the next meeting when we're looking at our little sheet of numbers so that we can have this conversation again and know exactly what our risk level is, so that we either don't get too excited or don't get too disappointed without actually knowing the facts. And
We can gather all the information.
It would be great if we could see what our actual buy-in would have to be to do it, so we can kind of continue this, but with some more real information behind it.
understanding that even if the numbers show that we can't do something this year, nothing precludes us from planning something for subsequent years. Now that we have some numbers. Right?
We'll put it in front of you and you can let us know how you want to proceed.
Perfect example of our new position tonight. It frees you up a little
Yeah.
to run these numbers.
He's not only budgeting, he's got fiscal with that.
All just golf. All just golf.
Sleep on it.
Thank you. All right, so board members, thank you for the meeting tonight. This is a special meeting, consequently there's no public comment either beginning or ending the meeting. However, the May 3rd meeting, there will be public comment again. So given that, I think we're now at item C, which is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Carrie, seconded by Amanda. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned at